Welcome back live to Municipal Stadium here in Daytona Beach, Larry Kelly Field. I'm Billy Gahagan, joined by Steve Allen. Coach, 35-0, Mainland leads Spruce Creek. I just don't know where to start. We've talked about how some people thought that this was going to be a closer game. Some people thought this was going to be a good game. You know, the rain, it has not stopped raining since we've gotten here. I'm afraid, though, at 35-0, this is a bit of a moral victory for the Hawks, because I'm afraid that if it were a drier field, we'd be looking at an even higher score and a bigger deficit.
I think it's possible. Again, I think it's more to do with the condition of the ball and how the ball can be handled. These field turf fields, they hold up pretty good. And again, you're not dealing with mud. You're not dealing with divots and problems with cutting and planting. So I really believe that the ball is the factor that the weather affects the most. But yes, I do agree that it could be worse. And if you're Coach Price, one of the hardest things as a coach is being in that locker room when your kids know that that the game is essentially over, and you're trying to find the things to say. And I think you have to be a visionary as far as what are your goals. And all of our goals are still there ahead of us. We can still, their schedule makes it manageable for them to still get to the playoffs, and to go out and try to find some glimmer of hope here in the second half and some things that they can build on as they move through their schedule. They've got a long trip next week, Bill, and I always found it's hard to get your guys. Yeah, I used to say I don't really want to take mine down the road, much less take them out of state. But coming off of a lopsided loss, that makes that even more of a challenge moving ahead for them next week. But you have a short memory. You try to move on, and they've got to put the first half behind them, and they've got to go play a second half and find out who their guys are, who the guys they can count on, the guys that are going to compete, and the guys that they can build with and win with.
Spruce Creek is entering the contest at 1-0. If things stay the way they're headed, they're obviously going to be at 500 at 1-1. They're coming off of a 6-4 year. Last week they beat SEABREEZE 19-12. Big win for them, big moral victory for them, bragging rights, everything. They come in, they take on a very talented Mainland high school team. They go to Texas next week. If they start out 0-3, it's not, or excuse me, 1-2, it's not the end of the world, because those two losses are non-district losses. So it's a bigger thing to have your district wins and losses intact than it is for an overall record, because we've seen teams that were 4-6 overall make it into the playoffs because they were 4-0 in their district.
Then there, and that's the truth, and that's what your first goal, I think, is any team. I know for every team that we ever had, first goal is win the district. That's job number one, and obviously, if your goal is to be undefeated, you can have a number of goals, but your goals have to match what your potential is. And for instance, for a team like Mainland, being undefeated, even with the tough schedule that they have, it's realistic. It's a realistic goal. I don't think that Coach Price, that's kind of one of the things that, he's put on the wall and said, hey guys, our season's going to be a failure if we're not undefeated. I think that's unrealistic. So you're exactly right. They've got their whole season ahead of them, but right now they need to focus on the second half and trying to execute on offense, put together some drives, something they can build on, keep their defense off the field, and again, going back to those game keys, don't turn the ball over, don't give up the big plays, and they're going to have to establish some kind of run game to have any success.
On the flip side, Mainland last year 12-2, they come into the game 1-0. They played Lake Wales next week. I don't know much about them, but their schedule doesn't get hard for them until September 26th, when they take on American Heritage here at Municipal Stadium. Speaking of the possessions and the turnovers, Mainland had 8 possessions in the first half. They scored 5 times. Spruce Creek had 9 possessions, no scores, and they had 3 turnovers. The other 6 possessions were in punts.
And now we have a great start here for Creek here as we get a bobbled kick, and Creek is they're going to make Mainland start this offensive series on their own 10-yard line. But now, in talking about that schedule with Mainland, Billy, I look at that, and Lake Wales is tied at second in the 6A or in the 5A. They're tied with American Heritage in that poll. Lake Wales is in Polk County, is a talent-rich place.
Oh, so they will be tested then
So
next
they
week
will be
against
they
Lake
will
Wales.
be tested.
Okay.
I think there's enough athletes that Lake Wales will give them.
And that's at Lake Wales.
And it is
Is
at
it
Lake
not?
Wales, yes, sir.
Well, that's a true test for the Buccaneers, and that's one thing that they have not shied away from. When Coach Moranto had these guys, and they were taking on the teams up in the Panhandle and the 2A state champions, Chaminade, they were playing those guys. That was all done with hey, we're going to play the best talent available, and it's going to make us even better. Killins on the handoff.
And he can roll, let me tell you.
First possession of the second half, big gain. So another first down for Mainland, and their positive yardage plays just continue.
Yep, and that's again, you'd think runs over 9 yards and passes over 14 yards as being explosives, and Mainland has definitely won the explosives contest here tonight. But you go back to that schedule deal, and yeah, but it's not all an accident. When you're somebody like Mainland, the people in your own district don't want to play you, and so it's not always easy to get games.
Houston going up. I'm going to be curious to see which way we go with this one. Houston electing to go and throw the home run ball, and they've been picking on Dondre Butler all night long, and I thought Dondre did a great job of defending the pass. He was actually stepped on, so how they could even throw the flag on that is kind of concerning to me.
I think it's offense. Yeah, I don't see any way that could be a defensive penalty. He had pretty good coverage. He was zone transitioning there, got his eyes back to the ball, and probably found it before the receiver did. But again, we continue to talk about that schedule. Talent-rich and tradition-rich state contenders in Mainland's, St. Augustine, Miami Central, Armwood, Naples, Dillard, Carroll City. They're all in that classification. You better be playing somebody on your way to that. You don't want the first time you see that to be in the playoffs.
Penalty was offensive pass interference against the Bucks. Houston's going to hand the ball off to Killins, and he's just going to do what he does best, and that's race around the right end. He's going to try and get back as many yards as he can.
Really not a bad job there by Spruce Creek. It's basically an outside zone play, and if you have speed and you have the speed advantage, which Mainland obviously does here, it's a great play call. You run outside zone to the wide field. You make their athletes chase your athletes, and they obviously have an advantage there. They really like this formation here. They like playing their tight end in what I would call a tray open or a trayo formation with tight end and two wides on one side. It's a 3-by-1. It gives you a tight end in the game where you've got a three-man surface. You can rush the football, as we see here as he breaks off another explosive run.
That's it's about a 30-yard pickup off of the inside zone, Coach.
Correct. And if when it's going that way, and you don't want to believe that it could be happening, but momentum is a really heavy burden to carry, and when it's with you, it can float you and fly you, and when it's against you, it can sink you. And I just, these defensive kids for Creek, they've seen 35 points on the board, and they've come out here in the second half, and Mainland is kind of having their way a little bit with the run game, and there's no better way to demoralize a bunch than hand the ball off and run it at someone.
Killins comes off the field for a bit of an equipment issue. Taking his place is Kalo Hanna. One can only imagine the speed that this young man possesses. Houston's going to look to throw the home run ball. He's under pressure. Just dumps it out to his tight end. Incomplete. And it'll bring up second down for the Buccaneers as Mr. Killins comes back on the field.
Well, Denzel did a nice job right there of avoiding the pressure and extending the play a little bit, and still gave him a chance to have a completion on the end. It looked like he just couldn't get 1 foot down. But he avoids the sack, and that's the bigger issue. No negative yardage play. It keeps you, kind of at least in sequence here, and they're going to get a play call in the game. And, you knew that two good runs is going to bring a play-action pass. It was only a matter of time. And there is nobody in the middle of the field. I'm looking for a post route here off of play-action. There's
Houston,
your post route wide open.
Pressure again, looking for
He's there.
He's beyond wide, Coach.
Yeah, and Spruce Creek did a nice job of getting pressure there. But if you're gonna kind of zero them out and play a man for a man in the back there, you leave some people in the box that you can bring pressure, but you put a tremendous amount of pressure on your secondary kids.
Pass intended once again for the tight end Jacob Tillman. He's a senior. Mainland forced to make some substitutions here. I always thought that on a guy coming in from the sideline, he had to break the number, but I don't know.
Baker came in the game, and he did not do that. The tight end comes out. Now, this is their screen and go play. Now, I think they might have just been running the swing screen that time and not the go off of it.
Timeout called by Mainland High School. 6:04 remaining as the clock continues to roll. And now it stops. 6:01 remaining. Mainland up 35-0 on Spruce Creek. We'll be right back. In wet and soggy Daytona Beach, Florida. 35-0 your score. Mainland leading Spruce Creek High School.
Excellent job here by the defense. That's just a design quarterback draw off a play that they've got a little series where they swing that back out here. They run the swing to him. They run the swing and the go out of the solo guy or the inside trip. And then this time they come back and they come with the quarterback draw. And I think it's a great call. The Spruce Creek kids reacted very well to that.
4th and 10. The Bucks have the ball at the Spruce Creek 32-yard line. Up by a whole bunch of points. And electing to go for it. Not questioning, just making the statement. Houston takes a snap. He's flushed from the pocket, rolls to his near side. We're going to have a penalty flag coming. That's going to be holding. And a near interception. Number 7, Dante Collier.
Did a great job of breaking on the ball there, but you could see that it was being held on the edge here, and that's going to come back, whatever the
Marcus
result.
Tatum being called for holding. I'm guessing Marcus Tatum, just based on his reaction. Nonetheless, turnover on downs. Moral victory.
Absolutely.
For the Spruce Creek Hawks, especially since they had that long run by Killens.
And that's their third stop, and they've needed some of those just from a confidence standpoint. And you're not just playing this game tonight. You know, you're building for your future, and again trying to find people that you can count on, the kids that are going to continue to play and play hard regardless of the score, and because you're practicing. You're practicing for what's going to come, and you're trying to work on your execution. You're trying to work on your fundamentals, and you want to be able to continue to get something out of this, even though, minus the score.
Timeout on the field taken by the officials for a water break. 4:16 remaining. 35-0. Mainland leads Spruce Creek. Coach, we said that next week the Hawks go to Texas. Now, I don't know much, but I do have my college degree, and I'm looking that they play 8 days from now on the 13th. So that's got to be a Saturday.
Right.
They still have to travel.
Right.
So how much practice time are they going to get in? When do you think they leave? They probably going to leave Monday, Tuesday?
That's a really good question. I don't know the logistics of it, but it just does not seem ideal. I mean, the trip, I assume they're going to take a bus. I don't know this. I don't know the particulars
I was thinking
of it.
Flying, but okay, yeah.
Either way.
If they're taking a bus, they're probably leaving tonight.
And any of us, right? But any of us have traveled. If you just have to go and sit in a meeting after traveling that far, it can be a little bit tough on you, and much less to play a football game, which none of these kids have ever traveled that far to play a game. I just think there's some challenges involved in that deal.
And and unless it was the only date available, why you would choose to go cross country after playing the Buccaneers. I just, well, but like you said, logistically, we don't know what they were told, what
Sure.
and what's going on. But man, to have to go to Texas after playing Mainland.
Well, I
Not
think
gonna
the
be an
in
easy
vogue
task.
thing to do, Billy. There's an in vogue thing that we in our day and age of SEC networks and Rivals.com and these types of things. The exposure is out there. The kids are turning on TV and they're seeing people play, and it kind of builds that, and the kids want to do it, or they think they want to do it, and you're just trying to you want to build your program. You want to give your kids something to be part of. But at the same time, you got to come back and you still got to play your district schedule.
And win or lose, these kids are going to Texas. There's probably going to be a lot of, logos exchanged, shirts exchanged, things of that nature. I think it's great. Don't get me wrong, but again, to have to do that following a game like tonight is got to be a difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're like asking me personally, I absolutely would not take my team that far to play a high school football game, just because if it were a bowl game, if it were something at the end
of the season,
as a reward or that type of thing, possibly, I just don't see the benefits outweighing, because there's going to be a jet lag component of that. We got a fake punt. Nice job. Okay.
Well, the good thing about that, Coach, is they come back from Texas and they have a bye week.
Yep.
So they have 2 weeks to get ready. So at that point, you're either licking your wounds because you're 1-3, you just can't, or 1-2. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go on. But again, there's no reason to throw in the towel. You haven't even played your first district game yet.
Absolutely, and the flip side to that open week is if you are 1-3, you don't have a gauge for those 2 weeks to know, or for your kids to know, hey, have we improved? We're banging on one another here for an extra week, and so there's 2 sides to all of it. We got a jet sweep here, and it's a tough play to run against Mainland.
Following the fake punt, which gave the Hawks first down, they come back with a jet sweep, and like you said, unless you're doing that in an inter-squad scrimmage against the blue and golds, it's probably going to go for naught. Just to let everybody know that's watching us right now, we are under a running clock, 35-point deficit. It's 35-0. Mainland leading Spruce Creek. This second half, third quarter, is about to come to a close. Tawan Williams still directing his spread offense. 3 receivers to his right, 2 near side. Tawan's going to roll out, has Mr. Olson blocking for him.
Ball's out.
And we're going to have a fumble on the play, recovered by Mainland High School. And that's a scoop and score. Or at least a scoop.
It's a scoop. We almost got the score. And you got a situation there when you play fundamental, good things happen. Their edge player worked so hard there to keep contained. And once he kept contained, Tawan got loose with the ball, tried to make the swim move with the ball. You as a quarterback, you got to take care of that. And when he swam it over the top, as it happens often, the ball comes out. And again, Mainland now has their 4th short field of the night, and this is the shortest of all.
And that was your boy, Kevin McCrary, on the scoop.
Something else. He is just some kind of player. He's got such a bright future. Possibly, and it's scary to say, his upside may be as good as anybody on that Buck sideline, and that's saying something, because they got some cats, man. They got some real ball players.
And again, they don't do anything but reload. They definitely don't rebuild.
No, sir.
So that brings to an end the third quarter. Again, moral victory. They kept Mainland out of the end zone. Spruce Creek did. It's 35-0 Mainland over Spruce Creek. We'll be back to bring you the start of the fourth quarter. Welcome back to Municipal Stadium, Larry Kelly Field. I'm Billy Gahagan, joined by Coach Steve Allen. It's the start of the fourth quarter, 35-0, Mainland leading Spruce Creek. Mainland, following a turnover, has the ball first and goal from the Spruce Creek 5-yard line. Houston, under pressure, rolling to his right. He's just going to throw it up aimlessly. It's going to fall incomplete. I would say good no call at this point, Coach.
At this point, absolutely. I think if the ball game is 7-6 right now, we're going to see a pass interference call on defense. But the Creek kids did a very nice job of containing Denzel and chasing it down once it broke outside the pocket, broke up the pass, and now they've, if they could stand up right here. One of the things I think coaching-wise that you battle here is you get the division, especially if you're a big school and Creeks. We got 2,800 kids as opposed to 1,800 kids at Mainland. But if you're two platooning, your offensive kids and your defensive kids, especially your defensive kids, are now barking at your offensive kids.
Right.
They're getting, hey, you've put us out here, and that's one of those things that you have to, again, you're managing it. It's constant. You're trying to, and you understand that it's happening, but you're still on the same team. And again, it's a long, long year.
Not quite sure what's going on. Teams have been exiting. Teams have been coming back on. Clocks are still running. We don't know if anybody called timeout. Nonetheless, it's second and goal for the Buccaneers.
They ran the draw last time they got in this set down by the goal line.
Empty backfield. Denzel looks to his left, looks into the middle, fires across the middle. Incomplete pass intended for number 15. That's Will Collins. It's going to bring up a third and goal for the Buccaneers.
Got to like Tramel McMillan over there, still battling, still playing. He had good coverage there. They came back to their little mesh route that they had earlier, and he put some heat on it.
Again, your score 35-0, Mainland leading Spruce Creek High School. We're under a running clock with 10:20 remaining in the contest. If you're Mainland, you want the time to go by very slowly. If you're Spruce Creek, you hope that 10:20 is a blink and you're out of here.
Yeah, right. It's going really, really slow on that other sideline, I promise you.
Houston's pass falls incomplete, intended for Randy Baker. It's going to bring up a fourth and goal. Now, this is one of those situations where we talked about what is rubbing it in, what is showing them up. Do you take a knee? Do you run a play? Do you kick a field goal?
Well, I've been on both sides of this thing, Billy, and I know that when I'm on the bad end of it, I'm not worried about that. I usually know that man that's on the other sideline, and we have some kind of relationship, and I've got to worry about my team. And right now what's important is for my team to play defense, and I can't worry about what he's doing or how it looks or what he's calling. He gets to control that. The only thing I can control are my kids, and but Denzel is not very easy to control, as you can. Very, very good job with the ball in the air, fake right there, and just gets the defender just to hesitate a bit and just walks it in the end zone.
Coach, that's one of those situations where the minute your backside end overcommits, that's you might as well just go ahead and put 6 on the board. Because
over is a good word. Over is a good word. It is over at that point, especially with an athlete of this caliber. And like I said, I can't say enough about Denzel. He has been everything that has been advertised and everything I've heard and read. He's got poise. He's got a rocket arm. And like we said, it remains to be seen what his future position may be. But right now, his position's pretty cemented as the quarterback for the Mainland Buccaneers. He's pretty salty.
Baudette's point after is up. It's good. 42-0 your score. For those of you who don't understand the running clock, it continues even as we set up our kickoff and kickoff return sides. So the clock will continue to run 8 minutes and counting as Mainland is ready to go. Spruce Creek, they're looking for answers, Coach.
Yeah, it's one of the most frustrating things in coaching, and a lot of it can just be attributed to the fact that the athletes that are on the other side are better than your athletes, and that's not just the only thing that's going on. I don't want to take any credit away from Coach Wilson and his staff. They do a wonderful job of coaching their guys up, and I think that's witnessed by the 3 trips to the Final Four in the last 3 years and the number of games that they've won and the kids they put in college. But it's any coach, you ask any coach, we all know that, kids win games more than coaches win
Right.
games. And if somebody's got better kids than you, they've got a little bit better chance to win. And so you're going to have to find things to overcome that. Goes back to our game keys again. You know, can't give them up, give them the big plays. You got to take care of the football, and you got to rush the football.
And talking about some of those numbers that you mentioned about, you know, being in the state playoffs and putting kids into college, that's Butler on the return for the Hawks, by the way. Mainland, they as being Mainland. Mainland is looking to make the state playoffs for the 21st consecutive year.
And I think that you know, obviously, Travis, TA, Scott, all these guys that, JB, all these guys that are there now and doing it. But I think that you have to go back to, John Moranto and Coach Garner and Coach Asher and the guys that were there before.
Coach Rollinson.
Coach Rollinson, absolutely. There's been some great coaches that have been through there that have kind of, made that happen. It's all got to start somewhere, and that's where Coach Price is. Coach Price in his second year. He's trying to build his culture. He's trying to build his football program, and that's what he needs to worry about. And I think that that's what they're going to be concerned about, more than anything after this, and having a short memory and just moving on.
Aaron Connor on the carry for the Hawks as the clock continues to roll, 5:55 and counting. It's now second down and short. Second and long. It's second and 7 for the Hawks.
Well, you can bet that Coach Rowland and his defensive staff and those defensive kids that are out there, you can bet that they are wanting to preserve this shutout. And I think that is one of the things they've had a proud tradition of defense, and they've been stellar on that side of the ball. And I think that that's going to be one of their focuses as we go through the final 5 minutes here, that they're going to want to keep Creek out of the end zone.
Late flag on the play coming from the far side of the field. Looks as if Jelani Bland may be involved in something with number 21, and that's Jevin Williams from Mainland. Both players have been asked to leave the field. We're waiting on the official word, but Mr. Williams stayed on the field. Bland has definitely exited, or he's standing next to Coach Price until they can figure this out.
We had a little extracurricular activity after the play over there, and basically some of that's frustration, and some of it are just kids that are competing and they want to. And as the coach, hey, I'm Coach Price. I'm not. I don't want him to get penalties for my team, but at the same time, I'm glad that he's in there battling and he's not giving up and he's still wanting to fight. And I can build with a guy like that. Those are the guys we want to go to battle with.
Offsetting penalties called, personal foul against both gentlemen.
Which, if you don't mind me saying it, it's the dumbest penalty in all of football. Either call it on one or just don't call it.
Well, and what I think is even dumber is that you have to mark it off on both sides if it's offsetting and you're coming back to that.
I'm with you on that, Billy. I think you're exactly right.
So the umpire just got himself in a little jog as the rain continues to fall, but the clock continues to roll. 3 minutes and 50 seconds remaining in our contest this evening. Once again, it's the Mainland Buccaneers leading the Spruce Creek Hawks by a score of 42-0. So we're going to replay second down. It's second down and 5 for the Hawks. Tawan Williams, pretty quiet night, but that was to be expected when you're facing Mainland.
You're just not going to get away there. It's just too athletic.
Probably should have thrown that one away, Coach.
Just absolutely, and that'll come with experience. You got to remember, I think this may be his third start in his career, and that will come with experience. And for all of the Hawks, they're going to learn a lot from this tape. Believe it or not, they're going to learn a lot, and I guarantee you that Coach Price and Coach Meadows and their whole staff over there, they're learning a lot right now. They learned in looking at the faces at halftime. They'll learn when they ride back on the bus a lot about their kids and their team and what direction they need to go in.
Terrion Tillman was in on the stop for that last play, third down for Spruce Creek. That's just inexperience.
Inexperience. It's a screenplay, Billy. They've got it set fair, but 33 sniffs it out. And what you've got to do in that situation is we always try to teach our quarterbacks to hit somebody in the feet with it and just get it out of your hand and live to fight another day. And now we bring what's been kind of a sore spot for the Hawks all night is their punt team, and now your punter's in the back, and I'm sure he's being coached up to just get 1 yard. You know, if there's anything that's not right, bounces, you mishandle it, just throw that thing out of the back of the end zone and move on.
2 minutes and counting remaining in the contest. Spruce Creek set to punt, fourth and a very, very long way to go. Hopefully they'll get the punt off. My question to you now is, the clock's going to continue to roll. Does Denzel come out under center, or do they put somebody else out?
I think that they're gonna sub it out here. I see some faces there. It looks like we're gonna get the subs. I really, speaking back to your embarrassing or this or that or this or that, I think we're gonna get the subs. I hope we do.
Yeah, I just see Denzel walking around with his helmet off. So.
Yeah, and Coach Wilson's gonna get some of his troops
for
there.
For one possession, maybe two.
Yeah, for one, but they deserve the work. They go to practice every day. But at the same time, again, going back to that embarrassment thing, he's responsible for his football team, and he's got bigger fish to fry. They have to keep their eyes on their prize, and they need to get their guys to work. And the running clock, one of the things about the running clock is it doesn't allow you to get all of your work.
Cyrus Fagan is the new quarterback. He's a senior, handing it off to senior Henry Reese. He's going to get some work in. 50 seconds to go. I'm sure before they spot this ball, the A1 officials will look to make sure that there's enough time for at least one more play as we bring to a close the Spruce Creek Mainland contest. Fagan, bad snap, recovered by Spruce Creek. Unless we call timeout,
that will be the last play of the game.
Very much so, the end of the ball game. The teams will look to run out and maybe get a play off. It doesn't look like Spruce Creek's in any hurry. Mainland sure isn't, as the seconds click down. 5-4, 3-2, and 1. So it is now official. Your final score: Mainland 42, Spruce Creek 0, as the teams meet at midfield. We're going to take a couple seconds to ourselves to regroup, and we'll be back to bring you some post-game comments. We'll be right back. Double D, we're gonna. You ready? Back live to Municipal Stadium in Daytona Beach. Larry Kelly Field, Billy Gahagan, Steve Allen. You've just witnessed the Mainland Buccaneers doing work on the Spruce Creek Hawks. It's their second consecutive shutout. Mainland beating DeLand last week 41-0. Beating Spruce Creek by a score of 42-0 this week. Coach, coming in, I would say that we all expected a better game, but I don't know if we're taking away from Mainland or taking to Spruce Creek. It's kind of tough to make that comment, but in my opinion, it was business as usual for the Buccaneers. And again, I'm afraid that if this field were drier, it probably would have been a lot worse.
It could have been. And one of the hard things about early season football is you're not sure if you won or lost in week one. You're not sure how good the team that you played was. And once we get 3, 4, 5 weeks in, you've gotten to see those other teams that you've played match up against others. Sometimes you're beating people, and it gives you a false sense of security. Sometimes you're losing to people, and it gives you a false sense of that, hey, man, we're not as bad as we thought we were. Maybe those people who were beating us were just really good. So I think that's a tough thing in early season. But absolutely, the Bucs are as advertised. Their defense is, looks like they're in mid-season form. Offensively, they had their way tonight. They rushed the football. They made big plays, and for the most part, took care of the ball. They were the benefactors of some short fields, and obviously, 4, 5 turnovers tonight. So, they were handed some things, but you've got to give them credit. You know, they came here on their home field in the second week of the season, and they took care of business, and you know, they're on to the rest of their schedule.
Well, it was definitely all Mainland, 10 possessions, 6 scores. Spruce Creek on the other side, 11 possessions, no scores. One of the names that we didn't even mention, and I'm almost positive we didn't even breathe his name on the Mainland side of the ball defensively, is Florida State verbal commit A.J. Westbrook.
Yeah, and I think this game didn't lend itself too much to him. You know, and we don't know right now how many tackles he may have been involved in, but Spruce Creek didn't throw the football down the field. And again, probably a good decision by Coach Price. If you're playing somebody who's picked it off 12 times and they've taken it to the house 7 in a season, buddy, there's something going on there. I mean, there's something special about that. So you are apprehensive and very pensive about putting the ball in the air. Inexperienced quarterback. Protection's always a key. Protection's always going to be a key against these guys because they can come at you so many different ways. They have size, they have strength, they have speed, and so they can get you from the edge. They can get you by beating one-on-one blocks inside, and they just bore that out tonight. They were solid tonight.
Taking a look to next week for both of these teams, as we've said, Spruce Creek travels to Texas for a 4:30 game on a Saturday. Mainland, probably their first test of the year. When they travel to Lake Wales, it'll be an interesting contest for both teams, needless to say. Next week, we will be here again at Municipal Stadium with the DeLand Bulldogs taking on the SEABREEZE SANDCRABS. SEABREEZE, by the way, lost this evening 28-7 at Flagler Palm Coast. I don't have a DeLand score. Do you know anything about what DeLand did?
I don't have a DeLand score, but I know that should be an interesting ball game, and I think it's a really good matchup. Coach Thompson's trying to build something over there at DeLand, and you know, I know Coach Beach is going to be piecing it together, and the SandCrabs aren't accustomed to, you know, being 0-2. But you know, if there's someone can get it going, that staff's the staff that can do it, and their kids are going to continue to play hard. So we should have a great matchup again.
For internet engineer Charlie Williams, for camera person Lori Wilhelm, for the boss Dan Descoli, Double D. He's Steve Allen. I'm Billy Gahagan saying goodnight from Municipal Stadium, where the Mainland Buccaneers were victorious again, beating the Spruce Creek Hawks 42-0. Good night. We'll talk to you next week. Welcome back live to Municipal Stadium here in Daytona Beach, Larry Kelly Field. I'm Billy Gahagan, joined by Steve Allen. Coach, 35-0. Mainland leads Spruce Creek. I just don't know where to start. We've talked about how some people thought that this was going to be a closer game. Some people thought this was going to be a good game. You know, the rain, it has not stopped raining since we've gotten here. I'm afraid, though, at 35-0, this is a bit of a moral victory for the Hawks, because I'm afraid that if it were a drier field, we'd be looking at an even higher score and a bigger deficit.
I think it's possible. Again, I think it's more to do with the condition of the ball and how the ball can be handled. These field turf fields, they hold up pretty good. And again, you're not dealing with mud. You're not dealing with, you know, divots and problems with cutting and planting. You try to move on, and you know, they've got to put the first half behind them, and they've got to go play a second half and find out who their guys are, who the guys they can count on, the guys that are going to compete, and the guys that they can build with and win with.
Spruce Creek is entering the contest at 1-0. If things stay the way they're headed, they're obviously going to be at 500 at 1-1. They're coming off of a 6-4 year. Last week they beat SEABREEZE 19-12. Big win for them, big moral victory for them. Bragging rights, everything. They come in, they take on a very talented Mainland High School team. They go to Texas next week. If they start out 0-3, it's not, or excuse me, 1-2, it's not the end of the world, because those 2 losses are non-district losses. So it's a bigger thing to have your district wins and losses intact than it is for an overall record, because we've seen teams that were 4-6 overall make it into the playoffs because they were 4-0 in their district.
Then there, and that's the truth, and that's what your first goal. I think
their schedule doesn't get hard for them until September 26th, when they take on American Heritage here at Municipal Stadium. Speaking of the possessions and the turnovers, Mainland had 8 possessions in the first half. They scored 5 times. Spruce Creek had 9 possessions, no scores, and they had 3 turnovers. The other 6 possessions were in punts.
And now we have a great start here for Creek here as we get a bobbled kick, and Creek is they're gonna make Mainland start this offensive series on their own 10-yard line. But now, in talking about that schedule with Mainland, Billy, you know, I look at that, and you know, Lake Wales is tied at second in the 6A or in the 5A. They're tied with American Heritage in that poll. Lake Wales is in Polk County, you know, is a talent-rich place.
Oh, so they will be tested then
so
next
they
week
will
against
be
Lake
they will
Wales.
be tested.
Okay.
I think there's enough athletes that Lake Wales will give them.
And that's at Lake Wales.
And it is at
it
Lake
not?
Wales, yes, sir.
Well,
I think as any team, I know for every team that we ever had, first goal is win the district. You know, that's job number one. And you know, obviously, if your goal is to be undefeated, you can have a number of goals, but your goals have to match what your potential is. And for instance, for a team like Mainland, you know, being undefeated, even with the tough schedule that they have, it's realistic. It's a realistic goal. I don't think that Coach Price, that's kind of one of the things that, you know, he's put on the wall and said, you know, hey guys, you know, our season's going to be a failure if we're not undefeated. I think that's unrealistic. So you're exactly right. They've got their whole season ahead of them, but right now they need to focus on the second half and trying to execute on offense, put together some drives, something they can build on, keep their defense off the field, and you know, again, going back to those game keys, don't turn the ball over, don't give up the big plays, and they're going to have to establish some kind of run game to have any success.
On the flip side, Mainland last year 12-2, they come into the game 1-0. They played Lake Wales next week. I don't know much about them, but
so I really believe that the ball is the factor that the weather affects the most. But yes, I do agree that it could be worse. And if you're Coach Price, you know, one of the hardest things as a coach is being in that locker room when your kids know that they, you know, that the game is essentially over, and you're trying to find the things to say. And I think you have to be a visionary as far as what are your goals. And you know, all of our goals are still there ahead of us. We can still, you know, their schedule makes it manageable for them to still get to the playoffs, and to go out and try to find some glimmer of hope here in the second half and some things that they can build on as they move through their schedule. You know, they've got a long trip next week, Bill, and I always found it's hard to get your guys. Yeah, you know, I used to say I don't really want to take mine down the road, much less take them out of state. But you know, coming off of a lopsided loss, you know, that makes that even more of a challenge moving ahead for them next week. But you know, you have a short memory.